السلام.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على السلام حي على السلام حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Brothers and sisters, before getting into the theme of the Khutbah today, I ask that we remember our brothers and sisters throughout this ummah of the Prophet Muhammad who may be suffering, whether we know the cause of that suffering or not. And now for at least the last 14 months, and even before the events of last year on October the 7th, we were making in this masjid dua for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. But after October the 7th, we have a new set of terror that has been facing not just the people of Palestine, but the entire ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That it's impossible for us on each and every day to know what is going on in Palestine, in Palestine, to see the deliberate and forced starvation of men, women, and children, to see the deliberate attack on hospitals and clinics, to see the deliberate destruction of housing, to hear about people being told to move to this area, it's a safe zone, and then as soon as they migrate to that area, they are bombed by drones and bombed by airplanes. There is no way that you and I can have a heart that is fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not hurt every time we even think about what is being done to our brothers and sisters in Philistine. And so I ask that we don't get tired, don't be tired of my coming here every Friday at Jumah and saying, please make dua for our brothers and sisters. It's the least that we can possibly do. Brothers and sisters, remember our brothers and sisters as this war criminal Netanyahu. Now nations around the world are beginning to recognize and to acknowledge those who are allies of Israel and the United States. They're beginning to acknowledge that this man is a war criminal and he must be stopped. And rather than allowing him to just move around the world with with impunity, nothing happened to him, he needs to be locked up. The world is finally recognizing this war criminal that is now moved his genocidal operation into Lebanon. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the time of the revelation of the Quran, when we look into the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the prophets that came before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it becomes very clear that test in this world is our gateway, how we pass our test, whether it's a domestic test, whether it is out another country, bombing your country off the face of the earth, no matter what it is, that tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how we pass those tests are our gateway to Jannah. That there's no Jannah without being tested. But even with that having been said, please remember our brothers and sisters who are suffering from very gross kinds of expressions of genocide as we gather here in the relative safety of this masjid. Brothers and sisters, I'm not going to take much of your time today. As a matter of fact, it's very difficult for me to stand in front of you today and get into it a little bit more as I go on. It's very, very difficult. So please bear with me as I try to present something that you can take from this that will help you in this world and by understanding it and help you in the next. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it very clear throughout the Quran in very long and very short surahs that sabr, That patience is something that all of us have to be able to endure the tests that we have confronting us in life. That if there's no patience, if there's no sabr, it is absolutely an impossibility that we will be able to respond to these tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that are pleasing to Him. But once we are very clear that we're going to be tested, just like those who have come before us, we'll be tested individually and we'll be tested collectively as an ummah. When we accept this reality about this world, then as we recognize the tests that are confronting this ummah, that are confronting the families of the ummah, that's confronting individuals within the ummah, we will have a proper response to those things that are testing us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it so clear. And I read this ayah in translation, from Surah Baqarah. Give glad tidings to those who patiently persevere, who say, when afflicted with calamity, to Allah we belong, and to Him is our return. They are those on whom descend blessings from their Lord and mercy, and they are the ones that receive guidance. Brothers and sisters, when we look at this first movement to establish Islam under the leadership of the Prophet Muhammad, we find that this was an ummah that was tested from the outset. From the very moment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet Muhammad this first installation of the Quran, from the very first revelation when the Prophet Muhammad began to tell those closest to him, he told in the earliest days of this first Islamic movement under his leadership, those that he told, he knew in telling them that they would respond to this message. He felt certainty that because of the purity of their hearts, that just hearing the truth, they would respond. This was not the case with everyone that the Prophet Muhammad gave dawah to, as we know. But one thing we do know, in those earliest days and until the actual establishment, the conquest of Mecca, after all of those battles that had been fought, that the conquest of Mecca, as you and I know, was done without bloodshed. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this period of time, these early days, the Prophet Muhammad and you know better than I, the Sahaba had to leave their home because of persecution, but they came back under the leadership of the Prophet Muhammad without war, without a sword fighting, without any kind of battles being fought, because at this stage of the Islamic movement, there was no resisting the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the power of this Islamic movement. Brothers and sisters, throughout this period leading up to this particular this conquest of Mecca, there were so many martyrs that were left not behind on the battlefield, but there were so many that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took as shaheed. There were so many who suffered all kinds of persecution. How can we forget the persecution that Bilal ibn Rabah faced? Someone who had a very cruel so-called master over him. And that when Bilal heard the message, not from the mouth of the Prophet Muhammad that he was willing to endure any kind and every kind of persecution, to declare to himself and to declare to this so-called master Umayyah, to declare to the Meccan society that he is submitting to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. A little side note that we're all familiar with how Umayyah would beat Bilal, trying to force him to quit saying ahad, ahadu, ahad, to quit saying that there's only one God. And when the movement of Islam was established, and the Sahaba was sitting around talking one day, we find in the Syrian literature that some of the Sahaba asked Bilal, you know he was going to continue feeding you. Why did you keep saying ahad, ahad? Why did you just be quiet? And he said, Bilal responded that I knew that saying just one God was the thing that would make him the angels. And I wanted him to just, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm editorializing, I wanted him to blow a head gasket. I wanted him to have a stroke or something. I knew this was making him angry. So I kept on saying that we could look at so many of the Sahaba, Sumayya, the first martyr of Islam. We can look at how the persecution that each one of these martyrs, each one like Kabab, the martyrs and those who survived the tortures, we can look at the patience that they had with whatever they were confronted with, that it was not a matter of their being persecuted and their iman, their connection with Allah was weakened by any kind of external persecution, that they were more locked in on seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sacrificing their comfort or even their lives for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, brothers and sisters, the times in which we are living today, and particularly after the promises that have been made throughout this electoral and particularly presidential campaign, that we as part of this ummah of the Prophet Muhammad in the United States have to recognize that in Allah knows best, and we should all make dua that what I'm about to say doesn't happen. But we should all make dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect this ummah. And that no matter what way we may be tested, that it brings us closer to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that we not be those who turn back or blame others for why we are not doing what we should be doing, that the times that we are approaching and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't test us beyond our readiness and capacity as he has promised, that he won't put any burden on us more than we have the strength to bear. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to deviate, go away from what I would normally talk about in a Jumah Khutbah. And the reason why I'm doing this is because for some of you may know that I have been Imam and founding Imam of the community mosque of Winston-Salem. I've been here for almost 40 years. And so many of you know me. Some of you know me much better than others because of interaction. But I have to just address, and the reason why I'm addressing it here in Salatul Jumah is because it's something that can impact and affect the community that we've had established here in Winston-Salem for the past 40 years. I don't know how many in this community, here in the community mosque, have heard about my personal household situation. As many of you know, I don't know if you knew where I was, but for perhaps the last 9 or 10 days until I got back this week, I was out of the country for about 9 or 10 days. I had an invitation to go with a group of imams and Muslim organizational leaders to Turkey. It was a wonderful experience that we really hope that even right here, the community mosque will be able to benefit from this particular experience. And while I was away, let me put it this way, when I came back to my house over on Sprague Street, my wife and my mother-in-law who were living my mother-in-law has been there for about 5 years, and my wife and I have been there over 20 years, living in this house, were gone. And much of all of her property and their property, and even some of my personal property, was taken out with her. And when this happened, right, when I got home from the airport on Sunday night, my front door lock was broken. And so I could not lock, and my granddaughter, could not lock the door of the house. And so that next morning, I called a locksmith to come put a lock on the door. And I asked brothers to help me to put what was left behind, because the overwhelming majority of my wife and my mother-in-law's property had already been taken away. I asked them to come to help put it out on the side, because I didn't know, and this is wallahi adeen, that my wife had never ever said anything to me about leaving or a divorce indefinitely while I'm out of the country. And so a lot of talk has been going around since this happened. And forgive me for doing this, but I'm just saying that I'm the imam of this mosque. I play a role in this community. Some people outside of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, know me because of responsibilities that I have outside of the city. And I think it's important, the most important, because I'm not going to repeat any of this outside of what I'm saying now to you all, because you're the most important. But I think it's important to get it from me that I did not know that the sister was moving out when she did while I was out of the country. I had not, as I've been told, I had never told this sister that I was going to divorce her. By Allah, with her being in the physical condition that she was in, by Allah, it never crossed my mind, and I never would have divorced my wife for 43 years, even if she weren't in the physical condition that she was in. This is by Allah. And so, since I've come back, I've heard all of this chatter. And it's all up and down the East Coast. And pictures were taken and sent all over the country about property that was out in front of the house. And this is evidence that I had put my wife out of the house. She was already gone. I didn't know she was gone. She was already gone. And I put the stuff outside because I didn't want another lock broken on my door and costing me money that I didn't have to retrieve property that was taken out and should not have been taken out. And so I'm very sorry to have to bring this to you in this way. But I owe an explanation to those who have heard certain things and those who haven't heard it. Once you hear it, you can say, well, at least I heard the other side of the story. And I think it's very important for us as a community, before we start gossiping and spreading rumors about someone, at least take the opportunity. I'm not a mean guy. I'm easily approachable. If you hear something that's distasteful, and right now I'm your imam, ask me, and I'll tell you the truth. But there have been so many things spread and being spread amongst this community and communities across the country, because I've moved around and there's certain people who know the areas that I've been, and they spread these kinds of rumors. What I ask of all of you is to pray for my wife. Make dua for my wife as I'm making dua for her. I'm asking that we make dua, that whatever, I'm not going to say imbalance, but whatever consciousness that she may have as a result of the disease that she has right now, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal her, give her a full shifa, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this sister. She's done so much for this community and other Muslim communities around the state and in different areas. So I'm just saying, make dua for the sister. I'm also asking, don't spread rumors unless you ask me. You ask me something, I will tell you. I'm not ashamed to tell you things. I'll say this one thing and I'll be done. And that is the first time that I heard something articulated to me, told to me about my marital situation. A brother who was representing her interests called me and told me that I needed to move out of my house and that he would assist me in moving out of my house. I've had no discussion with my wife, and I get blindsided by a brother saying, you need to move. And I got very upset by this. You must be out of your mind. And whoever is telling you to tell me this must be out of their mind. The next time I hear something, it's okay. The sister is going to move. And just as I knew I wasn't going to move, and all along, and I'll end with this, it was never nothing in my domestic, in my household, was approached to me from a person I had been married to for 43 years. I got it from a representative of hers without any background information and telling me that I needed to move out of my house. And so forgive me for spending this time as a room. I thought that this would be the best time to try to reach those who have heard things and maybe who have not heard things. So at least whether you believe what I'm saying or not, you'll be able to tell those who are spreading this information that, well, Khalid is saying something different. He has a different story. So then try to make a judgment, determination what's true and what's false. Our praise is due to Allah. We praise Him and seek His assistance against the evils of our minds and against the unsuccessfulness of our actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can go astray. And whomsoever Allah calls to action as a result of his own actions, no one can guide or right. O Allah, help those who help the religion of Muhammad, and count us amongst those. O Allah, disappoint those who try to disgrace the religion of Muhammad, and do not make us those. Brothers and sisters, who try to take so long, I just have a couple of very quick announcements. The first announcement is starting today. We will not make direct appeals for our brothers and sisters in crisis. I think we tried to set up a process, a procedure, that anyone that needed Sadaqah, don't wait until Friday to come when you have a crisis and you know that the crisis is there. Don't wait until Friday, and then we're put in a position to make these appeals. We've been doing it week after week. When I was gone, I heard that even a non-Muslim was here trying to get money from the community, and we're trying to give and help everybody, but we have to use the process that has been put in place. And we have forms downstairs to help people understand where you can get assistance. Go here, go there. A long list. Have you tried any of these things? When was the last time you made this appeal? I think it's unfair to those who are members of this mosque to repeatedly have to come up with these Friday appeals and try to satisfy them. So as of today, we're stopping that. And we're going to have in place more of a procedure. You can't just walk up on Friday and think that we're gonna raise X amount of money. When you know that that need is there during the week, make contact, and we can see what we can do. Come on, Mr. Law.